shining.
On the top of the sharps, it's shining.
It is? See it now?
It's good now.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Mr. Natural's Music School here in the Haight-Ashbury of San Francisco, California. Welcome. Well, we've been talking about the staff, and for the last 3 lectures, I explained the fixed system, the ABCs. We've talked about the clefs and how each clef is actually an Old English way of writing a letter name, and it defines on some line someplace in the system a letter. And the letters that have fallen out over the years are finally, we've come up with an F, we've come up with the C, and we've come up with the G. So we have now these basic 3 staffs: the G clef, which people call the treble clef, the C clef, which people refer to as the transposition clef, or the alto of the violas use it for their viola clef, and then the F staff, which is used for the bass on the piano or for trombone or tubas, any instrument that's below middle C. The G is the fixed note just above middle C. The C clef is the middle C on the piano, and the F clef is the lower F below C. And those are fixed. And then we talked about, well, all the clefs can be moved around even though their pitches are fixed on the piano. And what you do is you learn what's called a one-to-one match. I look at this, go, oh, that's G, and push that button. And then you just learn by rote, or what I call monkey see, monkey do, mostly monkey. So you just learn directly how to do things.
Turn that light out.
And after a while, you cannot tell what's going on. You just do this reflexively until you're playing the piano. And then my favorite joke, how do you stop a classic pianist from playing? You just take the music away and they're stuck. And if you ask them, analyze that song and tell me, why did it convey the specific emotion it did in a certain piece or a certain place? And they can't tell you why. There's no way of analyzing the music by using the ABC system. So that is why composers for the last, probably 400 years have been using intervals to write by, and particularly the more modern composers. Almost every composer I've run into and I've talked to, and believe me, I've hung around with quite a few of them here in San Francisco. I used to host a composers site in my house, kind of a salon for composers, and I used to have at least 20 to 25 composers would show up every single week. So I got to see a lot of ways in which different people worked, but in every single case, they all knew their ABCs inside out and backwards. They knew how to spell everything. They knew all their sharps. They knew all their flats, and they didn't use it until they wrote the score down on a piece of paper after they had composed on the piano or guitar by interval. So they used intervals to do that. So we were talking about how the clefs always wind up on the positive space, which are the lines, and none of them land on the spaces. Then I explained briefly, very quickly, at the end of last week, how the sharps and flats were used to distribute and create what's called a key signature. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but a key on a map is that little thing down in the corner that has little pictures, and it tells you the symbols on the map, because the symbols on the map don't really look like reality. They don't actually take a picture of railroad tracks, and they don't take a photograph of a car lane and put it on the map. They have a little symbol, usually just a line for a road, and usually a line with a bunch of little things that look like kind of look like a really nice scar, you know, one of these nice Frankenstein type scars for railroad tracks. And so what they're doing is the key shows you what the symbols are and how to interpret the symbols. Well, the key signature is the same thing, and the key signature was used to move occasionally to the spaces. So we could start notes on any one of the spaces. I could start on D, I could start on F, A, C up here, the E up here, or the G up here. And the distribution of those sharps and flats went down in a very specific way. And what I was explaining, and I'm going to explain here right now, is what a lot of people don't realize is the staff by itself, with no notes on it at all, is automatically in the key of C, which is why it has no sharps and flats. And there's a problem with looking at the staff, and that is not all notes are equal on the piano. As I go from C to D, I'm going what's called a whole step. There's a little black note in between those. And when I go from D to E, there's a black note in between those. But when I go from E to F, there is no black note. And yet the strange thing about that E and F and then F to G is that E to F distance feels the same, has the same intensity, the same density as the ones that came before it. Now in intervals, we would call C to D a major second. D to E is a major second, but E to F is a minor second because it's one chromatic tone, not two chromatic tones. It's what we call a half step, not a whole step. And yet, because it's placed in that position in the scale as I sing, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, do, re, mi, fa, sol, so, fa, mi, re, do, that part between mi and fa sound the same, has the same emotional intensity as the other intervals. So there's a case where a minor second sounds like a major second in terms of its emotional interest. And so what's happening here on the staff is hidden to our eye. When we look at a C scale, it looks like it's going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, etc., etc. Or it's going up a second, going up a second, going up a second, going up a second, a second, a second, a second. They're all seconds, but not all those seconds are equal. So the one between E and F here, right here, is only a minor second. It is one chromatic tone. And between C and B here, it is one chromatic tone. So we have these things. By the way, Angel, do you know how to spell the word PYKNON?
P-Y-K.
Oh, P-Y, right. P-Y-K.
N-O-N.
N-O-N. I don't know why I want to spell it with P-I-K. Yes, P-Y-K-N-O-N, PYKNON. Please look that up, right? I think you can Google it or you can Wikipedia it, but you'll find a really good definition of it in the Harvard Music Dictionary, or if you have any kind of music dictionary at home, look up PYKNON. This is the Greek word for a note that is a half step instead of a whole step, that has greater density of sound and sounds like all the other things in line. And what's happening is this C clef here, this C staff, has right there a PYKNON. So let me draw in the PYKNON. So from the E line to that space right there, we have this half step, which is normally happening. So if we number this, 1, 2, 3, 4, between the notes 3 and 4 in a major scale, and then we go up again 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back up to a high 1, do to do, and then right here again we have another PYKNON, which is sitting between that line and that space. So between the line and the space here is a minor second. It's shorter. And between the B and the C here is a minor second. It's also shorter. So between 3, 4, 7, and 1 are naturally minor seconds. And so that looks like a second, a second, a second, a second, a second, a second, a second to our eyeball. But this is a major second, minor second. Major second, major second, major second, minor second. Now what happens is, if we decide to move the scale from C up to G, these PYKNONs are still in the same place. So what happens is, right here between this B line and this C line, let me draw it in over here, is a PYKNON. Now let's go up a little bit higher. Here's the F line, and between the E space and the F hanging off of the line now, we have a PYKNON up here. And of course we could take this all the way up to the key of C, and up here at the key of C,
Which you did above.
we'd have another PYKNON hanging off of the B, the C to the B. So you see we have these PYKNONs up here and these pycnons here, you'll see these two sit between the line and the space, and these hang between the space and the line. And that keeps happening. You get two sitting, two hanging, two sitting, two hanging, two sitting, two hanging. And the ones below are always 5 notes apart, and the ones above are always 4 notes apart. And then 5 notes, 4 notes, 5 notes, 4 notes, etc. We call it a fifth, a fourth, a fifth, a fourth. And the pycnons go on, and you have to remember in your little brain someplace that those little rocks, those little stumbling points are there. Now, if we move this scale up, going from, and we call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our high 1 again, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, you'll see that when we go from 1 to 2, it's a major second. From 2 to 3, it's a major second. But from 3 to 4, we get a minor second. And look, right there, between the F and the C, we have a pycnon, folks. And that's exactly where it should land. That half step that we cannot see, landing between the 3 and the 4, or between B and C, is the same half step as you see between the E and the F here. So now if we continue on up, we should have another major second, another major second, another major second, and it should end with a minor second. So here we have a major second, here we have a major second, but look, between here and here we have a problem, because look, there's a pycnon. So invisible to our eye, this little spot here is not a major second, it's a minor second that's hidden. And it looks like a second, but it ain't. And so what we need to do to adjust this, so this scale will have the same sound as this, all the intervals, all the distances between the notes have to be the same. So what I need to do is move the half step from here, there's a whole step here from 7 to 1, so I can do that by taking and placing a sharp on this line right here, the F line. And by making that an F sharp, now what I've done is I've moved the half step from here to there, and now the pycnon winds up being where it's supposed to be, that is the minor second, winds up being between 7 and 1 and between 3 and 4. So in order to get the G major scale to sound like the C major scale, I had to add a sharp. And I added the sharp on the 7th step of that scale. Now if we were to do the same thing by moving up another 5 notes here and start laying out the D scale, etc., etc., what's going to happen is we're going to wind up with a similar situation. Between 1, 2, and 3 now, we have that hidden pycnon. So I need this F sharp to still be there in order to adjust the D scale. So the pycnon winds up over there. So with the F sharp there, now this stops being a minor second and becomes a major second. And now the minor second is happening right where it ought to be. So we still need the old F sharp. And now what happens, we have 3, between 3 and 4, we have that half step, 5, 6, 7, and 1. And what happens is, again, right here, that pycnon there is in the way, and it is making the notes 6 and 7 have a minor second. So what do I do to correct that? I simply raise the top one by putting a sharp up there, and I now have to add a sharp on what? I'm adding it on the 7th step again. We're keeping the old sharp in order to get the right pycnon distribution down here, but now I have to add another new sharp, and that new sharp that I'm adding in happens to be C sharp. So we've added an F sharp and a C sharp. So if I play the G scale, I have to have an F sharp in order to make it work, and the pycnon will fall where it will, naturally. Then when I move up to D, 5 notes up, all of a sudden I have to keep the old sharp to get that pycnon in the right place. And then I go up here and the natural pycnon is in the wrong place, and I have to add a C sharp there to push it up, so there's a half a step between the 6 and 7, and between the 7 and 6 we have a major second again. So now I've added another sharp, and where have I added that sharp? I've added it on 7. And what's happened to the old sharp? It's moved down into the position of 3. Now what happens is if I continue this and go from D, go up another fifth to the A line, and do this again, I'm going to need my F sharp, because it's going to wind up landing up here between 5 and 6. So I'm going to have to push that up. And then I'm still going to need the C sharp, because that's going to land now between on the 3, and I'll have to push it up to get the 3 and 4 right. And at the 7th step of the A scale, guess what's going to happen? Ta-da! 6 and 7 are going to be a minor second again, and I'll have to sharpen that note, that 7, to push it up towards the 1, so the half step, or the minor second, comes between the 7 and the 1. Now what happens is I've added yet another sharp. I still need to use the F sharp, I still need to use the C sharp, but now I have to add a G sharp. And now you'll see that F sharp and G sharp are 3 and 4 and in the D scale. So what happens is when a sharp comes in, the one furthest to the right is always the number 7. Then when it moves up 5, the 7 becomes a 3, and you have to add a new 7. And then when you add another sharp, what happens is that 3 moves up to 6, and the 6 and the 7 moves to 3, and now what I have to do is add another new sharp here. And this pattern will keep rocking back and forth until finally when we get to the 7th sharp, we've sharpened every note, every single one of them. But the interesting thing that's happening here is these things, which are on a line, on a line, on a line, if we looked at it an octave below, those would be on spaces. And what's happening is by just using this pattern of raising up 5 notes and then adding a 7, raising up 5 notes, adding a new 7, raising up 5 notes, adding a new 7, we get the circle of fifths, and we get the distribution of all the sharps. Now, they usually put the sharps in a very specific order. You will always see I'm going to make it really tiny so it doesn't get in the way. The first sharp that we saw for the G scale came in on F sharp. The next one, if we go up 5 notes from there, will be C sharp. But I can't put it up here because I'd have to put it way up there. So what we do is, instead of going up 5 notes, we drop down 4, which is the inversion of 5. It's the reverse of 5. And we come down and put the next sharp right here on the C sharp line. Then again, we want to go to the next key. In this case, we want to go to, from the D, we want to go up to the A. And then what happens in order to go to the A, we have to add, at the 7th step of that scale, a new sharp. And that new sharp is going to be G sharp. And they usually put it up here. And you'll notice the distance from here to here is 5. It's going up 5. But in order to draw it on the board conveniently, what they do is they use this up 5, down 4 thing. So the names turn out being in the same place. So now the new sharp that I'm going to add after G sharp when I go to the next key of E, where there'll be 4 sharps, is I'm going to come down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the D line and put that sharp there. Now if I go up, it's going to go back up into the ledger lines if I go up 5. And so they don't do that. What they do is they drop down another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the A line. So now when we play in the key of B, we're going to have an F sharp, a C sharp, a G sharp, a D sharp, and an A sharp. And you'll notice that the A sharp is 1, this is a space, right there on that line is the letter B, and that's the key it's in. In the key of F, we go from the line up here to the letter G, and that's the key that's in. If we go from the C, from the space up to the line, it's D, that's the key that's in. If we go from the G up to the next line, that's A, and that's the key that those 3 sharps is in. When we go to the next one, D, up, one, again, we're going up a minor second, and what we have now is E. And now we go down a fourth, and we have A, and we go from the A up just 1, and we're now B. And this continues on ad nauseum until we run out of and have 7 sharps. So now we've come down, I have enough space, I can go up 5 again. So we go from the A up here to the E, put the next sharp up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then again, if I went up, I'd be in the ledger line, so they pull this down 4, put it on the B line, and now there are your sharps. You have an F sharp, you have a C sharp, you have a G sharp, you have a D sharp, you have an A sharp, you have an E sharp, and then you have a B sharp. And with the B sharp, if we look up, it takes us to C, and C already has a sharp on it, so this would be the key of C sharp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sharps is the key of C sharp. And you'll see what's happened is the whole system using this key signature has moved up just from 1 space to 1 line. And now, instead of the C scale, we can spell the C sharp scale by putting sharps on every note. And if we keep doing this again, by the way, if I were to go from here and go up 5 notes, what am I going to do? I'm going to land right back here on the F, aren't I? But what happens is, if I land on the F here, I'm going to have an F sharp here, my 8th sharp, and I'm going to have an F sharp here. So I'm going to have 2 F sharps on that line, and because of this spelling issue, they created a special, we created a special little character, and in the newer books, it's written like this with an X with these little squares on the end, like that, and this is called a double sharp. So what I would do is remove this, remove that, and replace it with the X. Now, in some books, they draw this instead of as an X. What they'll do is they will draw it, they'll put an X like this, and then they'll put a dot inside of each of these little spaces, which is is a square. And this is also a double sharp. And so that's the way I like to draw it. I always draw it like that. So now we have not 7 sharps, but 8 sharps, and the F sharp now becomes a double sharp. Now, where is the next note going to go? Well, it's going to come down here on C, and what we're going to do is wind up getting rid of C, and we're going to wind up replacing C again with a X dot 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 C double sharp. So now 9 sharps later, and we have C double sharp. And if we do to go one more time, this G then becomes a double sharp. And what happens is we keep doing this, and we do it 7 times. Theoretically, this key doesn't actually exist as spelling on the keyboard, but theoretically, we can do things that are perfect, like in math. And what happens is we will wind up with 14 sharps, or 7 double sharps. And what happens when we do it again and it comes back to the F again, 3 sharps or a triple sharp winds up resetting the whole system back to where it started. So although you'll never see music hardly with more than 7 sharps, it is theoretically possible to go up to 14 sharps, to have 7 double sharps. which is 14 sharps. And by the way, it's a key that I can read in. As a matter of fact, with the system that I use, using numbers or reading by interval, I can push this even further and go 3 more, triple sharp, triple sharp, triple sharp, and read A double sharp. So A sharp is B flat, A double sharp would be B, but I would have to call it A double sharp. And then what happens is, as I'm spelling, I'm going to wind up getting all these double sharps plus a couple more triple sharps, and I'm going to wind up with 14, 15, 16, 17 sharps. So the key of A double sharp equals 17 sharps. And this is theoretically possible. And if I threw this in front of a pianist, he'd fall off this chair. Wouldn't know what to do with it, okay? Because reading by ABC, keeping 17 sharps in your head and modifying every ABC you see, it gets really complicated, right? So we don't do that. But by interval, here's the interesting thing. I always know that the last sharp that entered the system is always going to be the number 7 being modified. So I can just say to myself, sharps equal the number 7. And I can take this double sharp here, or this triple sharp, go up to the next line and say, that next line is where the number 1 is, and just start playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'll be playing in the key of B, which is A, could be spelled as A double sharp. Starting with A double sharp, going to C triple sharp, going to D double sharp, F triple sharp, G triple sharp, etc., etc., etc. Okay, but in my system, it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And honestly, I could play any old note. I could start on any old note I want, because I could use any major scale and then be reading with 17 sharps in the key of A double sharp, play the C scale, and I'll get the same sound. Okay? So it's easy with numbers or with intervals to follow this system. What this system is doing, though, is it is moving these things around, so occasionally the note do, or 1, winds up on a line. So now let's take a even fancier look at this and see, try to have a little bit of fun with this now. Watch. So here's those PYKNONS. I started here at low C, so between C and B, and below it are two hanging PYKNONS. From the E up here to the BC are 2 sitting PYKNONS. Then you'll see here from the EF up to the BC again are 2 hanging PYKNONS. From the EF to the BC are 2 sitting PYKNONS. From the EF to the BC are 2 hanging PYKNONS. And those are hidden there. Those are little traps where the interval of a second to your eye is actually shorter. It's been one black key has been stolen. And it turns out that, it creates some kind of problems for people who do the ABC, but you'll find out later on when we learn to read by intervals, that's going to wind up being an advantage for us. We're going to be able to use that as a tool to help us write major scales or minor scales in any key and automatically figure out how many sharps and flats need to happen on it by just figuring out where those PYKNONS are and how they land and following this formula of what we call major second, minor second, major second, major second, major second, minor second. Okay. Now, let's take a look. F, sharp. So if you go from F up to the next space, that's G. So that is G. And here, G is on a line. Then we come down to C, and C is pushed up from this space to that line there. And it winds up being D. So I could either put it up here on this line, D, or down here on this space. Could be 1. You see, up 5, down 4. With sharps, up 5, down 4. Let me say that again. With sharps, up 5 or down 4. And what happens is it causes one of the notes to wind up on a space. Now let's go to the G. I sharpen the G, and we wind up going from this space to the line, ledger line above there, and that's A. So 3 sharps is A. Well, I can put A here on a space, or I can put A down here on a line. Again, if I start here with 1, I have managed with this key signature with 3 flats. With 2 sharps, I moved it to D. With 3, I've moved it to A. So now it's on a space. If I come now down to the D, the note is going to be E, just the next one above it. So again, E, I could either go up here and use this space as my 1, or I can use this line down here as my 1. So now that's moved it to a line or an upper space. Come on down to the A. The A, you move it up to the next line, it's B. B is on a line, but down here, B is on a space. So the number 1 can be moved to a space. By using this key signature theme, we can get out of this problem with the clefs always starting Do on a line, and we can use this to push Do to spaces. And then we go here, the A, that's B. We go here to the E, that's going to be F sharp. And F sharp is right here on a space. And then from the F sharp, we come down to the B. We push that up to the C sharp. And again, C sharp right here is on a space. And so with this key signature, we're able to move the note Do occasionally to a space. So six of the keys will be on lines, and 6 of the keys will be on spaces. And we can now start Do on any line or any space by using this system. Now with flats, exactly the reverse of what I was drawing happens. When we take a key signature and we move it from C, and we have it up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our C line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down here we have our bass clef, which is the letter F, and here we have our treble clef, which is the letter G. What's happening is the C, D, E, F, if we take this and move this down 5 notes, line to line, and start in the key of F, what's going to happen is 1, 2, 3, 4, PYKNON. That B, C, has a PYKNON. And what's going to happen is I'm not going to have be able to go from the note 3 to the note 4. It's going to be a major interval. It's going to be a major second now, and I need it to be a minor second. So what do? I flatten the number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, flat the 4, and now the distance between 3 and 4 still has our half step or our chromatic tone, our minor second, and we've now added our first flat into the system. And the first flat is what? It's the 4th step, but it's B. So up here we would put a B flat, and down here we would put a B flat for our first flat. Now if we take this and go down 5 notes again, we're going to be on B flat. But 1, 2, 3, 4, oops. Here we wind up with this F, E thing happening again, and this is going to be too big, so I'm going to have to take and flatten that 4th step of the scale, and then as we get up here, we're going to find out that the B flat is still there. When we end on B flat, so that becomes our high 1. So now what we've done is we have 2 flats, and the flat that we had to add was again the E, or the 4th step of the scale.
really
So-
hard to read.
So if I put E right up there, yeah, I know that's hard to read. If I put that up there, you'll see that by going up 4, which is 5 down, I've gone E flat. So now the next thing I'll do for the next scale, as I drop from here down to here, we're going to drop down to the E. And what's happened is I'm going to come down here, 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put the next flat in right there. See? The next flat is right there. So our next flat is going to be A flat. And how can I tell what key it is? This is always going to be, the last flat will always be the number 4. Now it just so happens 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Uh-oh. Here's the E flat. And it turns out that the flat before, the flat behind me, is the name of the key. And since there is a flat on that E, we would call this E flat. But let's say I don't give you that. Let's say just for the heck of it, I'm being Mr. Natural here, and what I do is I don't give you these flats. I only give you that flat. Well, how am I going to figure out what it is? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count from 4 up to 1, or I'm going to count down. 4, 3, 2, 1, E, and I know that there's a flat there. So we're going to be in the key of E flat. Now, as I continue to distribute, going down 5, going down 5, going down 5, and adding a new flat, the new flat that's going to be added is always going to be the number 4, and then the other flats are going to move up to the higher end of the scale and redistribute themselves. And then I'm going to do that again, go down 5 notes, start my new key, and on the 4th step, it's going to be a major. So between 3 and 4, I'll have to shrink that 4 down by putting flat on it, and then all the other flats will still be in force above that. And so what happens is we can tell what key something is by looking at the number, the last flat, and counting simply down 4 lines and spaces, or look to the flat before. So when we had B flat and E flat, it was in the key of B flat. When we had B flat, E flat, and A flat, it was in the key of E flat. When we add our next flat here, which is going to be a D flat, what it's going to be is it's going to be in the key of A flat, and et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see the distribution is normally like this. B flat, up 4, which is the same as a 5 down, then down 5 to the A flat, which is normal, going up 4, which is an inverted, going down 5, to the D flat, coming down to G flat, see, there's the 5th again, going up a 4th to the C flat, which is down 5, and then going from here down 5 to the F flat. And so our 7 flats are distributed, and you see they look a little bit more interesting in this weird mess because we had to do a double 4 dive here to get our 2/5 going up. All right. So now, what if I want to move the clef? What if I am using something like the transposition clef? Or let's say I'm some poor viola player. What's going to happen is if I move that clef to another line, if I move it, say, here, the French violin clef, because the bottom note on the violin is G, and since there are no notes lower than the G, well, why not just put this at the bottom and have every note on the violin be above? It gives us more of a chance to get things on the staff. But what's going to happen now is the F sharp is going to start down here. That's where F sharp is going to be, below the G. And then what happens is the next one, I just go up 5. And look, if I go up 5, that's G, A, B, C. And if I want to, I can go up 5 again. C, D, E, F, G. And I can't go up 5 again because I'm being the ledger line, so the rule is if I can't go up 5 for sharps, I go down 4. So from here I go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd come down to this line here. And then if I wanted to, I could go up a 5 again for the next sharp, or I could come down 1, 2, 3, 4, and this, and that line, this space and that line are the same name, all right? So you have F sharp, your C sharp, your G sharp, your D sharp, see, over C, D. Then you still have, right after that, your A sharp, which comes in. And this is also where A sharp would be, G, A. So probably you'd be better off not putting that there, but putting that in there. And then what can I do? Then I can go up 5. And I could go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what do I have? I have that shape. So it looks completely different, doesn't it? But it's actually easier to see them. And knowing that this is the letter name G, and this is, remember we said grizzly, bears, dirty, F-A-C-E. Grizzly, bears, dirty, F-A-C-E. And you can see why the violin clef, the French violin clef, is so easy to read. Because you got the word grizzly, bears, dirty, face. Easy to label all of the lines. And then the distribution of sharp can be up 5, down 4, up 5, up 5. And you get a completely different shape. And although this does not look like this at all, they are still the same names. And using my system, this is the last sharp right here on the between A and C on the B line. So if I go, if I say this is 7, B, so then the next one is going to be C sharp. So C sharp will be the key, and guess what? It's the same as when we ended over here. Every one of these has the same name. Now let's show you in a real extreme way to drive this home. If I draw the grand staff and I start way down here with F sharp, this is F sharp, right? Then we go up to C sharp, up 5. Go up 5 again, and now we got G sharp. We go up 5 again, see, space, space, space. We have D sharp. We go up 5 again, we have A sharp. We go up 5 again, we have E sharp. We go up 5 again, and we have B sharp. And that's the end of the system that we use, and you will notice in every case, we're going up 5, up 5, up 5, up 5. We don't have to use that going down 4 trick. Now, we use the going down 4 trick whenever we want to, and by going up 5 all the time and down 4, we will distribute the sharps in any pattern that you want. Bela Bartok put his F sharp here. Then he put his C sharp up there, and then he put his G sharp down here. His distribution was different than this. And when I started learning to read his music using the microcosmic, macrocosmic books, I was confused because I had learned to recognize this shape and I didn't know what was going on. But guess what? Bela Bartok was smarter than I was at the time, and he knew that this distribution could be any way he wanted as long as he followed the rule of up 5, down 4, up 5, down 4, down 4. And what's really happening is if we look, it's up 5, up 5, up 5, up 5, up 5, up 5. Now, I'm going to show you another interesting trick. If we start with the first flat, instead of starting way down here, let's start with the first flat up here, and the first flat is B. If I come down 5, the next one is E. If I come down 5, the next one is A. If I come down 5, the next one I add is D. And if I come down 5, the next flat is G. And if I come down 5, the next flat is C. And if I come down 5, the last flat is F. You'll notice the pyramid that's created. And what's happened is this is 5s going up, and this is 5s going down, and coincidentally, they have the same names. There's no new pattern happening here. So if you memorize this forward for your sharp, you got that in your head. Oh, I know the first one's F, the next one's C, the next one's G, next one's D. If you do it backwards, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, you will have, again, the circle of fifths going through the flats, coming down, and again, although this is a very nice and very pretty distribution of the flats, I don't need to use it. Because I could move the clef somewhere where I start down here, or up here, and come down 5, come down 5, come down 5, go up 4, go up 4, come down 5, come down 5, and I could have a configuration up here that's completely different, but the flats would land on the same names. So, the key signature was created to tell us where the 1 was, and to be able to push it to the spaces. Here, all we have to know is that the very last sharp is always the number 7 of the scale, and that the very last flat is always the number 4 of the scale, and then we can figure out by counting down 4 what the name of that key would be, or in the case of flats, do the flat before. And in the key of sharps, there is no before thing, because it's reverse, and so we would take the last sharp here, which is B, and go up to C sharp, and say, oh, that's the key of C sharp. 7 sharps is the key of C sharp. Okay? That's it. And this concludes the staff using a fixed system. Now, let's go quickly over the problems. Problem 1, you're playing by rote or memorization. 2, you have to remember the ABCs. 3, after you do this for a while, you can just see that, push that button, see that, push that button, fine. But if somebody does something intelligent like this, and you don't see the patterns that you used to, you're lost and you don't know what to do about it. And since you don't know that the sharps are going up 5s and that the flats are coming down in 4ths, creating the circle of 5ths in one direction and the circle of 5ths in another direction, also, if I do it in the other way, instead of coming down 5, if I go up 4, up 4, up 4, I'll get what's called the circle of 4ths, and the circle of 4ths and the circle of 5ths give the same letter names in the same order. So I would get lost if I'm learning to play using the grand staff on the piano, just learning to see these things in fixed positions and just memorizing this thing and going what we call see it, say it, or match it. Match 1 for 1, which is the way we learned English in grammar school, usually in 1st, 2nd grade. It's kindergarten stuff. And the problem is that no matter how advanced you get at this and no matter how good you are, in terms of your knowledge of music, it's kindergarten stuff. If you want to get into the 5th or 6th grade, you're going to have to see these patterns behind it, and these patterns are interval patterns. And these things are not fixed or carved in stone. They are movable, and they are movable so you can conveniently write all the notes for a particular instrument to land on the staff and not have a crap load of ledger lines. I had a piccolo player come to me once from the symphony who had to read this piccolo piece on the flute and to do Stars and Stripes. She had to play that little part, and there were so many ledger lines on the piccolo part, she couldn't figure it out. She said, where's the, I'm lost. There's 13, 14 ledger lines. And she said, what do you do? And I said, watch. So I took this clef, and I said, down 16, or down 2 octaves. And then all of a sudden, boom, it came down right onto the staff in an area that she knew, and we rewrote the thing out, and she had ABCs that she could recognize, and it didn't matter what octave she was playing it in, play it in any octave you want. But she was able to recognize the ABCs, and she was able to play that piece, and she learned it in 5 minutes. After days of being confused. And then I told her, if you'd come to me and learn to read by interval, you could have read that piccolo stuff directly, because it wouldn't have mattered how many ledger lines there were above it. If I said this ledger line was 1, then that would be 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, etc., etc. And she could have played that same piccolo part on her flute in any key she chose, just by grabbing the major scale. That's what we're going to discuss next week. So I'm sorry this took a little bit longer, but I think I've summed it up. I don't think there's a single thing that I've missed. The thing you have to understand is the staff has the C bias with E and F and B and C having PYKNONS built in, which are natural minor seconds that your eyeball does not see. So you got to have a good imagination or a memory to remember where they are, and then whoop, these ABCs will start working out for you. So till next week, hey, Christmas is coming up, New Year's is coming up, happy holidays. And for all you people out there that are playing Jingle Bells for Christmas, it's not a Christmas song, it's about a traffic accident. And for all of you people out there that are playing Auld Lang Syne, it's not a Christmas song. It's a drinking song for college buddies who can't remember what they did when they were younger, and they're just tipping the drink, giving cheers. What do you call that? Giving a toast to the people they can't remember in the past. So it's a New Year's song. So see you all. Bye-bye, everybody.